I am shortly about to receive a call from a Meta media expert. This is a free service that Meta offers, and I've been invited to have a 20-minute call or meeting. I've had one of these sessions before, I feel like, maybe a couple of years ago, where they were just talking through all the latest developments on Instagram. I can't remember how helpful it was, but anyway, I've got another one booked, so let's see what the crack is. I initially got contacted by Meta, and for the life of me, I cannot remember how the initial contact first came. I cannot find any record of it in any of my email addresses. I cannot find it in my Instagram DMs. Obviously, I was at first a bit dubious about whether it was some sort of scam or phishing, but because I've had one of these calls with someone from Instagram in the past, I knew that this was a legit service. So when the contact came this time, obviously I did do some checks to make sure it was legit. I had to fill out a form, and I only know this because when I got the follow-up email, which I do have a record of, it said, "We recently filled out a form." So I was obviously invited to fill out a form to express my interest to have one of these one-to-one calls. Once I submitted the form, I then got an email from an individual at the Meta Media Experts team. He was in the Scaled Partnerships team. I will share the content of the email here so you can see what it looked like. Because I know there are several phishing scams going on at the moment where people parade as Meta representatives and ask for details and try and scam you. You obviously do have to be very careful that if you do get one of these emails or invitations, that it is legitimately from someone from Meta. I will post in the video description a page that shows you all the email address endings that are verified from Meta, so you can check that the sender who's sending you that message or that email is legitimately from the organization. After receiving this email, I was actually able to follow a link which allowed me to book a specified time to have the one-to-one call. If I didn't do that, then I would have just had an assigned day where Lucas, my assigned representative, would just be working through calls. So I just had to have a window available within which he would ring me. But I decided to pre-book myself a specified date and time so that I knew when to expect the call and then I could be ready. As you can see from the email, the purpose of the call was to help me reach my goals on Meta's platforms, specifically Instagram, and to talk about my Meta glasses and my content strategy. The Meta glasses thing, I think, was triggered by the fact that I had actually purchased a pair of Meta glasses a few months ago. They have a camera recording functionality on them, so you can wear them and they will film whatever you're seeing. They also have other features which are a little bit space age for me, but the purpose of me buying the glasses wasn't for any of that, actually. It was purely for filming content, specifically bits of content that I do currently film on tripods, but it's a little bit awkward. So things like when I'm filming at my sewing machine or when I'm filming at my knitting machine, it's just very awkward to set up tripods when you just need to have all of this action and hand motions going on in front of it. So I bought the glasses specifically for shooting that type of content. But I actually ended up returning the glasses because, first of all, I just didn't feel like I'd really justify the price of them. But I think as far as this call goes, they obviously still had a record of me buying a pair of glasses and assumed that I still owned them. So my 20-minute one-to-one happened yesterday. It ended up being half an hour, actually. And now I'm going to share with you the video that I filmed straight after I got off the call, sharing everything that he told me and everything we discussed on the call. I have just finished having a half-an-hour call with somebody called Lucas, who is a Meta media expert. I was given the opportunity to have a one-to-one call with him to discuss my Instagram growth strategy and for him to give me some latest insights and some tips on growing on Instagram. I went into this with a very open mind. I had no idea what would come out of it, but I have to say, it was actually really interesting, really interesting. I will debrief you on exactly what he has told me, which I think will certainly help me, but I think in turn will also help you. I was actually going to record the call, but my other phone was dead. I had to take the phone call on this phone and it didn't charge in time, but I did make some copious notes. So let's go through it. The first thing he was talking about was the Meta glasses, you know, the recording glasses with the camera inside. He was talking about the benefits of Meta glasses and how they might be able to help with creating the content and so on. But anyway, he said regardless of that, we can still have a lot to talk about on the call. So I think obviously Meta trying to push sales of their glasses as much as possible, understandable. And in certain situations, can't see how it'd be really useful. But for the reasons I said, I actually did not keep mine. Then we talked about my personal Instagram, as in, I think he'd obviously gone through my analytics and he had had a look to my Instagram account. And he said that my page is performing really well, like in general, that I have strong momentum and Instagram is pushing my content out, which is good because obviously Instagram uses certain signals. Whenever you post, Instagram uses certain signals to tell it or to tell its algorithm whether to push your content out any further or not. So he said, the signals are good for me. Instagram is pushing my content out, which is good. He said, the main thing for me is about getting consistency with my reels. So he said they did a big piece of work where they did some research into their internal data. And they found in their research that it's 3 times a week. So posting 3 reels a week was the most common, I guess, average for the highest growing accounts on Instagram at the moment. He asked me how I felt about that because he said, I look at your content, it's obvious you take a lot of time on your videos and you film them over a series of days, so 3 times a week might not be as achievable for you. I told him that I have actually been taking my foot off of Instagram strategically. I've been putting more focus onto YouTube, and actually as of this morning, I have rebooted an ancient Facebook page as well, and I'm looking to experiment with Facebook again this year. And he said, yeah, that's all fine. And I asked about consistency, and I said, is it about the quantity or is it about the consistency? Because I can probably commit to being consistent once a week. Like if I consistently post 1 reel a week, I think that would be something very achievable for me. And he said, it's very close. It's almost like 50-40 between consistency, as in how regularly you post or that you post regularly, versus quantity, which he said is like about 40% importance. It made me think about whether I do post a little bit more on Instagram, maybe twice a week. And I asked whether it matters whether they're clustered together, because I'm really only looking to be on Instagram twice a week, like at weekends really. So I said, does it matter if I post, for example, on a Friday and a Saturday to make that 2 times a week, or should it be more spaced out optimally? I don't know if he answered the question directly, but the way he answered it made it sound like it didn't quite matter. He said you could post on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Most people are on social media platforms on the weekend because they have a bit more time. But then you also could post, for example, on a Wednesday and a Saturday, space it out a little bit more, and that would also be good. So he didn't seem to say that one was better than the other. So for me personally, I think if I were to go to 2 or even 3 reels a week, I think 3 would be a stretch for me. But if I were to go to 2 reels a week, it doesn't sound like it'd be detrimental for it to be 2 days back to back. So a Friday and a Saturday, for example. And I tended in the past anyway, if I ever had 2 reels a week to post, I would tend to save them for a Friday and a Saturday evening, because weekends are when I tended to see most engagement anyway compared to posting during the week. I've not been particularly strategic or analytical about it, but this is just my sense from when I've posted things. I found that I've had more engagement at weekends than during the week. When I was talking to him and I said, part of the reason I had taken my foot off Instagram and looking to diversify onto YouTube and other platforms is the monetization. I said that Instagram is a platform that I've not really managed to monetize very much, and that I was looking to diversify and explore other platforms. He said with monetization of Reels on Instagram, so apparently that happens with US accounts. Apparently, accounts based in the US can be eligible for Reel monetization. I don't know that it's widespread. Maybe, I don't know if creators have to be invited, or I don't know exactly how it works. But there are some accounts, US based accounts, that do get paid for Reels. He said that other countries, it needs to be negotiated with each government how that works. I'm like, but YouTube manages to do it and TikTok manages to do it. I don't know why Facebook is making such a meal of having to talk to every single individual government about paying creators in that country. But anyway, that's apparently the case. But he said, there are conversations going on all the time. So he said, don't be surprised if one day you do end up being eligible to get paid for Reels. So, maybe be ready for when that happens, if it happens. So I was kind of like, okay, all right, interesting. Then he talked about time of posting. He suggested that I go to my insights, which I do actually. If you go to your insights, if you have a professional or a creator account on Instagram, not a personal private account, it'll tell you where your followers are from, what the mix is of female versus male, what the age range of your followers is. And it also tells you per day of the week, which hours during each day your followers are most active on Instagram. So I have looked at that, and my followers consistently every day, actually, out of every 7 days of the week, the biggest spike I have in my followers being on Instagram is between 6 and 9 p.m. So I tend to post in the evenings anyway, whenever I do post. And he said that it is best to post when your followers are most active, because I've seen advice to the contrary on other videos where they've said, well, don't post when your followers are most active, because that's when you are also in competition with more people who are pushing out content at that time. But I think my own experience has told me that my best time of posting, certainly for engagement and views, tends to be in the evening, my time. So kind of like 8 to 9 p.m. So that's when I do tend to post. And he corroborated that it is best to post when you can see that your followers are most active through your insights. So that was interesting. So he was then talking about signals. Remember, I mentioned before that Instagram gets certain signals. Once you put a post out, Instagram will start looking for signals as to how that post is being received. It will look at watch time if it's a reel, so how long someone's watched the video for. It'll look at the comments and how many comments and engagement is coming in. And so he said there are certain things that are good to do, especially within the first hour after you post a reel. The first thing is be the first person to comment on your own reel. Now, this is something interesting because I have never before commented on my own post. I've replied to other people's comments on my post. I've never once commented on my own post. But he said it's good to do that because it sort of kickstarts the engagement. It doesn't have to be anything really fancy, but if you be the first to comment when you post with a trigger question, maybe, like you can just ask a question that will trigger some engagement in people's comments, because the way some people tend to view reels is you'll start watching the reel, because I know I do this, not all the time, but often I'll do this. I'll start watching the reel and then I'll swipe up and start looking at the comments while the reel is still playing in the background. So he said, when you post a comment on your own reel, what that does is when someone swipes up while they're still watching your reel, they're still listening to it in the background, but they're just scrolling through the comments, they will see your comment with maybe a prompt or, something that is easy to respond to or will trigger them to respond. And then when they comment, you might sometimes even get two comments from them. One responding to the question you posed in your comment, but then also secondarily to say, oh, really enjoyed the video, thank you, blah, blah, blah. So that's an interesting one. I will try that because I've never actually done that before. I've seen other creators do it. But I've never actually done it myself. So that'll be interesting to see whether that makes any difference. I did ask him whether to pin that comment or just leave it. And he said, yeah, pin it, because once comments start coming in, especially if you get a lot of comments and yours might get lost in between everybody else's. So if you pin it, then obviously it comes up right at the top and then people see it as soon as they go to the comment section. But he said equally, if you forget to pin it or it's too late, don't worry about it. I guess it's only really there to do a job of getting the engagement going, and then it's kind of done its job, really. He then said, and I have heard this, but he corroborated it, and that was interesting. So another growth tool is using Instagram Edits, which, if you don't already know, Instagram Edits is a separate app that is available on the App Store or Google Play. It is issued by Instagram, but it is not Instagram itself. It's a video editing app that Instagram provides. When Instagram Edits first came out, it was so glitchy. It was awful. And actually the feedback from creators at the time was like, don't touch it with a barge pole. It glitches like mad. And I had that experience too, of audio coming out all weird and distorted. It was not good. It was not good. And actually it didn't have a massive range of features compared to an app like CapCut. So I use CapCut for most of my basic editing. So he asked me if I have used Instagram Edits or know of it. And I said, yeah, of course I do. I actually do use it. And he was giving me a hack for it, which I do use already actually. But to come back to how Instagram Edits promotes Instagram growth, it's because Instagram is pushing creators who use edits more than others. If you use edits to edit your videos or to post your videos to Instagram, Instagram will push that content or prioritize pushing that content over if you hadn't used edits. So a workaround, because we all have our editing apps that we prefer to use, right? I mean, Instagram Edits, I'm used to it now. Like I do use it sometimes. I edit most of my stuff in CapCut because I just like the interface. There's loads of features. I do pay for the Pro subscription as well on CapCut. So just value for money wise, I like to use it. And that's fine. You can use any other editing app to do the bulk of the editing. What you can then do as a hack is, once you've exported the edited video from CapCut or whatever other app you're using, if you put it into Edits, the main thing is to export it in Edits and then post it to Instagram through Edits. What that will do is it'll take you to Instagram. It'll queue up the reel for you in Instagram. You can type your caption, you can put your cover photo and all that stuff as if you were doing it through Reels in Instagram itself. But then when you post, it'll put a little tag. You might have noticed this on other creators' videos. At the top, there'll be a little attribution saying made with edits. When that attribution gets attached to a reel, that's when Instagram prioritizes and pushes that more than not. So you don't have to do the bulk of the editing in Edits. You just have to put your video into Edits, export it through Edits into Instagram, and then you'll get the little attribution, and then you'll get the preferential push through using Edits. That is something to try if you don't already. I already do that for a lot of my video. So that was interesting to know. And then he mentioned on Edits, this was interesting. I'm definitely going to look into this. CapCut already has a templates section where there are pre-made video templates that you can choose, which are already edited, formatted, music on it and everything. And all you do is you pop in your own clips into certain parts of the template. If a certain clip needs 5 seconds, CapCut will just cut your clip to 5 seconds so that in the end you get this video to this template, but just using your own content. I have used that once actually on CapCut, but I have not really used it a lot. And CapCut tends to be a bit more polished looking. Sometimes you see these sort of influencer type videos and it's like, oh, 5 looks on vacation, and it's all just very glossy looking. That's what CapCut templates look like. And I'm sure a lot of those influencers do use CapCut templates. But apparently Edits has launched its own version of templates. He said, give it a try. You go into the template section of Edits, and the templates on Edits are a lot more, I don't think he used the word basic, but they're not quite as sort of glossy. They look maybe a little bit more like you might have edited it rather than some shiny app has edited it. And he said the templates on Edits are trending. He also mentioned inspirations on Edits. This is another area I'm going to look into. There is a section on Edits called inspiration, and on that it finds the viral and trending videos on Instagram right now, not like 2 weeks ago or a month ago, trending videos right now by other creators that you can make your own version of. So it just gives you a little clue as to what types of content are being very successful on Instagram right now, and giving you a jump off point to create content in that same vein that might also have a chance of doing well. He said that Edits will also tell you why that video had done well or why it was trending. It might be to do with trending music. The earlier you use a trending audio, the more likely your version of that trend will be pushed out. I was asking him about trending audio because I've not really tended to jump on trends very much. And I said, does Instagram push out content because it's trending audio? And he said that Instagram is constantly looking for what's trending. So if it sees that there's a particular song or particular audio that, for example, 500,000 creators have used in the past 24 hours or 48 hours, it'll start to give a signal that, ooh, this music or this audio might be trending. And the earlier that you can get on to that trending audio, the more likely Instagram will be to push your content out with that audio. Obviously, as time goes on and as the trend takes momentum and as millions of people jump on it, then it's less likely to have any beneficial effect for you. But if you get on it early, and that's where if you go to the inspiration section of Edit and it shows you what's trending right now, you could take advantage of the early signals that Instagram is getting about what's trending and then jump on that as early as possible. In terms of the reasons why a particular video might be labeled as trending or having done well on Instagram, it's either the trending music, or it's because it's used a template on Edits, or because it's a relatable topic. So usually one of those 3 things will lead to a video going viral on Instagram. I think the takeaway here is that Instagram is looking to do a push on templates through Edits. So it might be worth having experimentation with that now and benefit from any particular pushing or uptake or upswell you might get from that early. I think for me as well, I'm going to try it out just because I think it will also probably cut down a lot of work, because templates do a lot of the heavy lifting for you in terms of the editing and so on. You just pop your own clips in there and it just pops out the video. So for me, while I'm trying to keep my work on Instagram to a minimum, that might be something worth exploring for me as a way to maybe put out just 1 more reel a week without doing much more work. So I will definitely be looking into that. The final thing I asked him about, just because it's kind of at the front of my mind at the moment, is about Facebook, because obviously Meta owns both Facebook and Instagram. Lucas, the guy I spoke to, is specifically an Instagram growth expert, but I said, well, do a lot of the same tips you've given me here for Instagram, do they also apply to Facebook? And he said they largely do, but he said the main thing is consistency, right? The main thing is just posting consistently, and as long as the content is good, you can't really far go wrong with that. So that was it. But yeah, I thought it was actually really useful. So if you do ever get invited to one of these one-to-one calls with a Meta expert, I would recommend you take it actually. They do look at your account and they do give you some specific pointers for you, but it is also really handy to know what is at the forefront of Instagram and Meta's strategy for Instagram, what they're prioritizing, what content they're pushing more than others at the moment. Really useful to know. And that's it. That's everything that happened on the call. I thought it was really useful actually, and I hope that you've been able to take away a tip or 2 as well that will help you on your Instagram growth journey. Do try them out and let me know how you get on. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.